Hello, everybody. Happy New Year. Sorry, I am here. Sorry, I'm only about 4 minutes late. I just had something to deal with, which is all sorted now, so that's cool. So, like I said, it's going to be a short one, because, yeah, I've had a cold, so I've got a sketchy voice at best, and yeah, late night last night, and a very, very long day. I think it was like a 21-hour day yesterday for me, so I'm needing to get some rest. So this is going to be a short Q&A session like we would normally do. No talking point tonight, but there will be on Sunday when I'll do my regular show. There will be a talking point, and I'll try and make it a point of having a talking point for each show that we do in 2018. So who have we got here? We've got 7 people here. We've got John Anderson. He says, funny, I feel all alone. Well, hopefully not anymore. Stephen Greenwood is here. He says, Happy New Year. And Just Bob and Kingston is here as well. Awesome. Someone just made a very strange sound. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. Hang on a minute. I think it might have been my audio box. Hang on. I'm not really sure what happened there. I hope you guys can hear me. Yeah, let me know if you guys can hear me. I'm not sure what's going on here. Yeah, let me know if you guys... Okay, so we are coming through on the stream. That's good. That's good. Yeah, I thought my phantom power circuit on my audio box just crapped out on me, because the light, the little light for it is normally really quite bright, and it's not very bright at the moment. Okay, Raina, good to see you, buddy. Thanks for popping in and saying hello anyway. Kingston says, at John Anderson, you need that Studio Live Series 3 to feel accompanied. Yes, I've got one of those. I've got the 16-channel console, which, by the way, folks, this year I'll be doing some videos on this. And especially when DAW mode for Studio One for the Studio Live mixes is finally released, I will have a whole bunch of videos to accompany its release. So hopefully when the release actually happens, you will get access to those videos, which will give you my perspective of DAW mode and how well it works and how good it is and what you can do. And I'm sure that there will be some other folks that put out some videos on it as well. Like I'm sure Rick Nackvey, my good buddy over at Presonus, will put some videos out, and I know Johnny Guy is going to do some, and Dave Vignola is also going to do some videos as well. So, so when DAW mode finally does come out, we will be putting up videos showing you how to use it, how to get the best out of it, and certainly how I use it. So yes, it's no secret that it is coming. It is very much being worked on. It's not something that we keep on talking about and saying it's coming, you know, and then it never does. No, this is very, very different. This is something that is very much being worked on very hard by the guys at Presonus. But they've just hit a couple of snags, shall we say, that proved to be a little bit harder to overcome than everybody has thought. So they are hard at work at fixing those issues, because we want DAW mode to be something that is rock solid when it goes out to public beta. So I'm not sure when that's going to be. I have no ideas. I have no news on that whatsoever to give you, other than I know it is a work in progress. That's all I know, and that's all I can tell. So there you go. There you go. That's kind of the Studio Live Series 3 and DAW mode. I want to get that out there because it is, you know, it is January 2nd, and I know that we've been talking about this coming out in November, and then we're talking about it coming out at the end of 2017, and it's still not here. So I don't know what the official line from Presonus is. That's up to them to make an announcement on that one. I'm not going to do that. I don't know all I know is it's being worked on, and they're working very hard at it. And that's all I'm allowed to tell you. But you're going to love it when it does come out. So there you go. All right, so we got 10 people in the room. Let's get some questions. We can talk mixing, mastering, songwriting, goals and aspirations for 2018 in your studios. Let's have some of those as well. And I can tell you what mine are as well. But let's get some of yours going first, and then I will tell you mine. Don Hamer, my good buddy, is here. He says, hello, everyone. Welcome, everybody. Beatrice Dewberry is here. Just Bob and Kingston Dread and Stephen Greenwood are all here. Raina, I believe, has had to get going because he has to be up early. So, and for him, it is like 1:10 in the morning. So let's not worry about that. Let's let him get some rest. My good friend Frank Saraceno has just popped in, and he says, at some point, can you talk about how you record your Nord or external MIDI keyboard in Studio One? How you set it up for audio and MIDI with external MIDI keyboard? Do you set up automation? And yes, we can definitely do a show on that. I think that's a bit more of a show that we would need to do on those. But to kind of summarize, the Nord I record strictly as if it were my Fender Rhodes in the lounge. It's just TRS audio cables out and into my interface, and that's it. That's all it is. This guy up here, this elderly fella, runs on a very old protocol of MIDI, very old version of MIDI. So what I have to do is I just run a regular MIDI cable out the back, and that goes into the MIDI ports on the audio box USB, and then you just set it up in Studio One in keyboards and devices, that kind of stuff. I can show you how to do that. That's cool. We can definitely do that as a show. In fact, we could maybe cover that for part of Sunday. Home recording made easy. That would be my good buddy Dave Vignola is here. Hi, Dave. Good to see you, buddy. Happy New Year to everybody here. And I hope you've had a fantastic time. It's really good to see everybody. And I know I kind of did a very, very brief Facebook Live on New Year's Eve, right after midnight. I did that. And that was just to say hello to folks and say Happy New Year. So I did one on my studio Facebook page, and I did one on my personal page as well. So, yeah, so this is more kind of like a bit more formal. Let's show that. There we go. Let's see what else we got here. Bobby Booth is here. He says hello. Hello to you, my good friend. Now, I do apologize if my internet is a little bit on the slow side tonight. It is very, very, very cold here, and it's very windy outside as well. So that might well be affecting the speed of my internet, which is usually pretty slow anyway. So let's see who we got here. Jeffrey Barr. Jeffrey, good to see you. He says, have you had much experience with mid-side microphone recording? Mid-side. I pretty much put the microphone in front of whatever it is, the source that I'm recording, and I move the microphone about until I'm happy with the sound I get, and then I hit record. That's what I do. Do I do mid-side processing? No, not unless it's absolutely required and absolutely necessary. But no, I don't do any mid-side processing unless it really is necessary. Stephen Greenwood says, when tracking with Fat Channel and effects on Studio Live 3, does Studio One include those effects on the resulting tracks? If you are tracking through the Studio Live, as in you're using the Studio Live as your interface, and you use the effects directly on those channels via UC Surface, then yes, I would presume that that's the case. I don't use the Studio Live quite like that, so I have not done that as yet. But I would imagine that if you track through the Studio Live as an interface and you have some of those effects via the onboard DSP in Universal Control, then yes, those would print to the track. That would be my summation, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Nezron87 is here. Hello, he says. Hi there, mate. Good to see you. Happy New Year. So yeah, it's a good couple of questions we got going there. So this, yeah, going back to the MIDI thing, this guy is really old. This is 26 years old. And so it uses a very old protocol of MIDI. Now, Studio One technically doesn't use MIDI per se. I mean, originally when Studio One launched, when version 1 launched, its tagline was, hey, no MIDI. You know, it was definitely, Studio One was designed to be an audio DAW. It was not really designed with MIDI completely in mind. That said, though, what they have is they have their own proprietary package that handles MIDI. So Presonus with Studio One, they designed their own way of carrying MIDI. So MIDI kind of, it goes in via, I mean, it goes through via traditional way, like, you know, via a 5-pin DIN plug like this guy does, because this is too old to work with anything other than MIDI 1.0. So when MIDI, the next generation of MIDI comes out, which is supposed to be sometime in 2018, that could be interesting. I don't know. I don't know how that's going to work in the future. This guy might have to be farmed out to retirement when that happens. So yeah, so this is really elderly. So essentially, it goes into my audio box, and then Studio One does the rest with MIDI. I don't quite know how its own proprietary protocol works, but I know that it has one. It doesn't handle MIDI in the same way that Cubase or Logic or any other DAW does. John Anderson says, I think you are right. I did make a decision, though. I'm going to give Persona 6 months or so after DAW release to make sure they don't release something new. I'm smart. Yeah, as far as I know, and I'm nobody special, particularly as far as I know, there's nothing new in the pipelines. But I don't know. That's kind of way above what I'm allowed to know. But there you go. Yeah, Door Control, I have no idea when that's coming out. Hopefully soon. Hopefully very soon. Because we're into January now. And it's been a lot of work for them to try and get it so that it works really, really super rock solid. So yeah, so that's all I'm going to say on that subject. But one thing I will say is Happy New Year to everybody. And this is the real stuff. This is Moet Chandon champagne. It's extremely nice. My wife and I are kind of celebrating 12 years together. We've been married for 10 and a half years, nearly 11 years. But we've actually been together for 12 years on New Year's Eve. So we've been celebrating that. So we actually got ourselves a proper expensive bottle of champagne to do it. And it's very, very tasty. Nezron says, Happy New Year, Johnny and crew. Thank you very much, mate. And to you too. Kingston says, I'm still using my Behringer XRX18 in the studio. The X32 for my live shows. When DAW mode is released, my studio will be fitted with a Studio Live 32. It gives us time to save some dollars. Yes. Dietrich asks, how long has 3.5.2 been out? That's been out quite a while. That came out February time, I think. Studio One 3.5.2. We are now on version 3.5.4 for Studio One, which is only, I think, November when that version dropped. Frank says, congratulations. We wish you all the best. Thank you very much, mate. I appreciate that. Yeah, 12 years together, and I'm still alive. I know I'm probably the most annoying person on the planet to be close to. So, because I'm stubborn, I'm a pain in the ass, and I'm extremely forgetful. I forget simple, basic things that need to get done. And you know, when they're supposed to get done, I forget that they need to get done, so they don't get done. So my wife has more patience than all the hospitals in all the world, as far as I'm concerned. She really does. She's a phenomenal woman, and I am extremely blessed to have her as my wife. She's crazy to have agreed to marry me, but she did, and I'm very, very, very thankful that she did. Just Bob says, I use an audio box. Does PreSonus have a box set up with sends and returns so you can utilize a separate effects rack, or is it strictly VST instruments? Some of the newer studio series interfaces, like the 6A or the other one, I forgot what the other one's called. That does have I think it's got some different outputs that you can have on it, so you probably could have send returns on that, but not on the audio box USB or the audio box USB 96. I think possibly the Studio 192 maybe can do that. I'm not entirely sure. I don't have any of those devices to be absolutely sure. Dietrich Tubery says, nice JL, congratulations. Yes, I need to start backsipping. Yes, me too. In fact, this is getting a little empty. I might have to go and refresh this in a minute. As I say, I'm still not 100% fit, so I don't really have a whole lot of voice. So the only reason why you're hearing me nice and loud at the moment is because I have this mic cranked up. And I'm talking really quite quietly into it. And it's about an octave lower than it normally is. So singing is definitely out of the question at the moment, which is a bit of a shame. So we've got 14 people here, which is pretty good considering I didn't really announce this. Except on Johnny's live stream this evening. I just quite casually said, yeah, I'm going to do a show at 6 o'clock Central Time. Why the heck not? So yeah, so here we are. So I wasn't really expecting lots of people to turn out, but I'm very glad that I've got the people here that I have, such as my good friend Dave Vignola over at Home Recording Made Easy. I don't know if he's still here or not, but it's very cool to have him here. He has a Studio Live 32 Series 3. He has the granddaddy of those mixers, the big one. And I'm sure he's pretty anxious for all the upcoming updates to it. Just like the rest of us Studio Live owners, we'd quite like to get going with it. Frank says, Cubase 9.5 is making me cry. I think I'm finally switching over to S1. Just have a hard time leaving their feature set behind. Workflow in Studio One outweighs, and Studio One does most of what I really need anyway. Frank, let me tell you something, buddy. I used Cubase from 1988 until 2014. Pretty much from version 1, I used Cubase up until 2014. So I was on, I think it was 6.5 when I quit. And I am extremely glad that I did, because it was making me cry as well. Because yes, Cubase has a wonderful feature set. It really does. And Cubase, I think, handles MIDI probably the best of all the DAWs, with possibly the exception of Sonar. And the reason why I can say that is because Sonar and Cubase are probably the first full-on DAWs out there. They were the first ones to the party before Pro Tools. And I know Pro Tools users like to say, no, it wasn't. Pro Tools was the first major DAW on the market. No, it wasn't. Cubase was first. Sonar was a close second. Then Pro Tools, and then Logic. Because Logic used to be known as what it used to be known as. I'm trying to remember. I was about to tell you that, and I've just forgotten what it was known as. But anyway, it was Logic. The first versions of Logic was pretty rubbish. It was pretty cheap and tacky and nasty. And so I'm actually really quite impressed with you know what Logic has become over the years. But I left Cubase because it was crashing multiple times every session. And you know, I've been a professional in this game for, you know, over 15 years. It's got to be like, I'm not really sure where we are. Where are we? 2018. Yeah, so it's going to be 17 years now that I've been making money out of producing music and mixing and mastering music for clients, and making money out of it. So yeah, so that would have been 2000, maybe around about 2001, that I started actually making money out of it. Yeah, Cubase in 2014, when I switched to Studio One, Cubase was pretty much crashing 5, 6, 7 times in a session. And it wasn't to do with my computer. Nothing wrong with my computer. My computer was absolutely fine. I had it. It was a proper pro audio computer. I had it spec'd out to the max. There was nothing wrong with that machine. It was all to do with Cubase. I'm not really going to bash on Cubase because there are a lot of great things about Cubase. However, Cubase does come, you know, with each new upgrade, a new update. It comes with all the code from all the other previous upgrades and updates. So, you know, 9.5 now, you know, has all of the issues with 6.5, and so on and so forth. So basically, it's just become massively overweight. It needs to go on a diet, and they need to rewrite Cubase with brand new, lean, mean code is what they need to do. But Steinberg won't do that. So yes, so I would heartily recommend, Frank, that you just ditch Cubase altogether, and don't look back. You know, yeah, Studio One doesn't maybe have all the MIDI features that Cubase has and some of the editing features, but you know what? I can pretty much no, I can't pretty much guarantee it, but I'm extremely sure that a lot of those features that we see in other DAWs are going to make their way into Studio One. It's logic, it's common sense. It really is. So Studio One is like the rewrite. Yeah, I think it probably is. I think Studio One, the guys at Presonus in Hamburg, a lot of those guys are former Cubase coders, like Matthias, who is the CTO. He's a former Cubase guy. Arne Kaiser, the general manager over at Presonus Software in Hamburg, he's also a former Cubase guy. In fact, those guys and the team that they had at the time, they wrote Cubase SX3. Matthias wrote VST2, I believe. So a lot of the reasons why we have VST plugins these days is because Matthias wrote the code for that, to enable that to happen. And a lot of the MIDI integration into Cubase, I think, was Matthias's handiwork as well. So yeah, they're all ex-Cubase guys, and they formed a company called what was it called? Crystal, I think it was. And they made a DAW called Crystal Audio. That's it, Crystal Audio. So they made that, and then they began working with Presonus to create the very first version, prototype version of Studio One. And then Studio One, Presonus basically acquired Crystal, and that became Presonus Software. So there you go. Frank says eMagic. Yes, that's right. Logic was called eMagic. That's right. I remember now because I had a little flirtation with it and immediately did not like it. And then when Apple bought it, I was just like, well, yeah, there we go. Good riddance. So there we go. Whilst I've been chatting away, let's see if I've missed anything. Okay, John Anderson says, on the Series 3, what's the update on the use of the Z's, either blue or green, for low latency? I cannot tell you. I'm afraid. Sorry about that, John. For the most part, the reason why I can't tell you is because I'm not using the Studio Live as an interface. I'm using my audio box as the interface, and I'm using the Studio Live for something else, which I can't talk about. So that's partly why I can't talk about it. The other part of why I can't talk about it is because I'm under a non-disclosure agreement. So there you go. So sorry about that. Well, okay, so we've got 15 people in the room and we've been going for 25 minutes, which is pretty cool. So keep the questions coming, guys. And I'm happy to go for a wee bit longer, as long as this is lubricating the vocal cords. I do not normally drink alcohol and do a live stream, but it's New Year's. Why not? So there we go. Sorry about that. I smacked my mic with my hand. So what else can we talk about, folks? What else have we got? Aspirations for your studios for 2018. Let's have some of those. I think I saw somebody post one. Let me go up and see if I can find that, and then I can read it. I think I saw it. Where was it? Let's see if I can find it. Here we go. Don Hamer says, my goal for 2018 is to make my studio full-time. Well, that is a tremendous aspiration, and I could not agree more with it. By the way, I hope my stream is not freezing up, by the way. If it is, please let me know. If for whatever reason we freeze up on picture or audio, let me know. Because I'm using the Google Hangouts interface, so I can see what's going on. So I can see what I'm doing, but I don't necessarily get to see what's going on screen, if you know what I mean. In YouTube land. So yeah, my aspiration for 2018, I have. Let me see. Oh, thanks, Bobby. I have a bunch of clients that I'm working with in 2018. I have one guy I'm producing a house record. House music's not really my thing. It's really his bag. He's really into house, but he's also into funk and neo soul and that kind of stuff, which I'm into. So his record is kind of a little bit of a fusion between house and funk and neo soul. So it's not strictly house. It's kind of dressed up house. So I'm working with him on his album at the moment. My dad is a tremendous acoustic guitar player. He's wonderful. He's incredibly gifted. And I'm not just saying that because he's my dad. He is actually just genuinely extremely good. I'm working with him on his EP. He's just finished up writing all the tracks for it. So we're going to get him in this month and get his EP recorded. And I am also working on a new EP. It's going to be 5 songs. I've been working on the songs in my songbook. This is where a lot of the songs get written. I'm not going to show you because at the moment on the page is one of my new songs. But yeah, so I sketch things out on that piece of paper, and that helps me just kind of process what goes on up here. And then it just means that getting recording into Studio One done is easier because it comes out of my head onto a piece of paper. That gives me a better logical flow into Studio One. So that's what I'm doing. So another 5-song EP. That should be coming in the middle of the year. So I'm thinking the end of springtime, that kind of time. That's when that EP will out. My dad's EP will be out probably in February, March kind of time. And the house record that I'm working on as well, that's going to be out kind of April time. So that's going to be good. I've got a lot of session work backed up, hungover from last year, which I need to finish. I've got bass parts to get out. I've got a lot of keyboard parts to get out as well, like piano solos. I've got quite a few of those to do. I've got some Fender Rhodes parts to do. I've got some Hammond organ parts to do. So the next 2 or 3 days, I'm just going to be blitzing all of my session work and getting it all out there to my clients who have been patiently waiting. So yeah, so I've got all of that going on, and my kids are back to school in about 7 or 8 days' time. So when they go back to school, I will start back with video production. Excuse me, for this YouTube channel. So I've got a whole bunch of new mixing tips videos coming. That's going to be, I'm going to go back to that mixing tips series, which I kind of started and then stopped when a whole bunch of new Persona stuff came out. So I started doing videos with that. But I'm going to keep that mixing tips video series going just continuously. I'm going to be adding to that maybe once a week, a 5 or 6 minute video that just gives you a helpful little mix tip. It might be a whole bunch of things, like I might do something on mixing bass, I might do something on mixing hand percussion, or vocals, getting your vocals to sit on the top of your mix and getting them to shine, to sound distinct from the rest of your mix. So things like that, that's going to be coming. I've got some products which I'm working on with my good buddy Dave Vignola, which we can't really talk about yet. But those are going to be coming this year as well. So we've got a couple of those that we're working on, which is very, very cool. So yeah, so my aspirations are really to get my own music out more regularly. That's one of my personal goals, is to get my records out like once a year. I want to get an EP out every year from 2018 onwards. So that means a 4 or 5 song record every year. And then I'll pepper it with, you know, a single or two. So 2017, the only thing I got done was the single, which was Spoken Softly, which was like the brass band with rhythm section tune that I did. Nice little slow ballady sort of tune with a flugelhorn solo. So that came out well before Christmas. I think it was November that came out. So so I need to do better with that and actually be a bit more focused about my writing. And you guys need to help me stay on top of that, please. So Don says, little choppy but not freezing. Yeah, the video is going to be a little bit choppy, I think, because my internet is suffering at the moment. It's very, very slow, and I need to look at ways in which I can get faster internet. I don't know how I'm going to do that. Frank says, do you usually do your own mastering for your personal projects? Do you use Studio One for that? Yes, and yes, I do. I do my own mastering for my own records, and I do use the project page for that. But I also offer mastering services professionally as well. I'm not an Ian Shepherd when it comes to mastering. Ian is a genius. He's one of the best mastering engineers out there. He would heartily disagree with that. I know he would, because he's a very humble guy, but he is fantastic. I learn from him. I consider him to be one of the masters at mastering. So I've learned pretty much everything I know about mastering. I've learned from him, and I'm still learning plenty from him, which will hopefully sharpen my mastering skills as we go as well. Just Bob says, my goal is getting a handle on gain staging, better mixing, and understanding plugins and mastering. Yeah, gain staging is a funny one, because it can be, on the face of it, really simple. Gain staging essentially is just getting your audio events to peak at the same level across the board, across your mixer. So let's say you have 40 tracks, let's say, and therefore you've got 40 or so channels on your mixer console. So gain staging is essentially making sure that each channel peaks at the same point. So let's say that's -12. So basically you're wanting everything to peak at -12. And you would call that, I call that a gain platform. So I want everything to arrive at a flat stage or platform. And that's what gain staging essentially is. That's the simplest way to explain gain staging, is to get everything peaking at the same level. And what that does for you is that gives you, on each channel, it gives you the same headroom for mixing on every channel, whether it's vocals, whether it's drums, whether it's bass guitar, whether it's trumpets, whatever it is. Everything has the same amount of headroom, which means that when you're adding EQ and compression plugins, and you're doing parallel compression and all of those things that we know and love, that are the bedrock of all mixing, you've got the same amount of room for the gain that is added by those processes on each and every channel. And what that means is that by the time you get to your mix bus, your mix bus is going to be nice and neatly balanced, and is, hopefully, if you're gain staging to a conservative level, you are not excuse me, you're not ever going to worry about clipping your mix bus. That's why I gain stage to -12, even if I've only got 6 or 7 tracks on, let's say, an acoustic record. Like, let's say my dad's EP, he's only going to be recording acoustic guitar, his vocal track, and I will add my upright bass track and maybe a little bit of brushes on the snare drum. And that's pretty much essentially what his record's going to be, maybe supplemented with a little bit of piano and a little bit of backing vocals. So we're not talking anything more than 8 tracks of audio. So therefore, we're using 8 channels on the board. I'm still going to gain stage to -12. Even though I know that my good buddy Johnny Gibe, he would gain stage to higher because there are so few tracks. I don't really do that. I keep it to one level because I'm a bit of a simpleton like that. So yeah, hope that helps there, Frank, with the gain. With Bob, with the gain staging. And you see, the other thing that it will do for you is that when you set your initial gain stage of -12, for example, or -18, whatever it might be, when you go into a compressor, let's say particularly an analog compressor, let's say an 1176 or something like that, you go in at -18 at the sweet spot. When you come out of that compressor, you balance the input and the output of the compressor so that basically you have overall no net gain in that sense, but the compression has turned up the perceived volume. So you do see some gain because it's perceived volume. It's, but it's still volume. So the volume does go up, but the input and the output levels of the input output stages of your compressor even. It means you've got headroom for all of that kind of stuff. And you've got headroom for, if you're boosting on an EQ, that's going to add gain, particularly if you're boosting at the low end. Let's say you're boosting at 70 or 80 hertz. That's going to add a lot more energy than if you're boosting up at 16K. So yeah, so I hope that helps. John Hanson says, mine used to produce a 10-song EP by our band. I think what I've learned from you and Johnny Gibe over the past 6 months, I'm ready. Well, good for you. And you have 4 hours of material. You just need to decide on which. Well, you know what? It's always good to be able to go into a studio to record your first record with a plethora of material from which to record. If you've got a whole bunch of songs, if you've got 20, 30 songs, then the cool thing about that is that you can decide which songs are the best to go on the record and which songs work best together in sequence to go on the record. That's another really good thing, is that you might have 30 songs, but they might not all go together. When you think about them in terms of a record, they might not actually go well together. They might be great songs, they might be really, really good songs, but they might not necessarily work together as a collection. Or if you're doing something like a concept album, you need to have 10 songs, in your case, of songs that are thematically related, so that you've got a concept that runs through all 10 songs. So you're going to cull other material that's maybe not as good, so that you make sure that you've got your best 10 songs on that record. Bobby Booth says, I also gained stage at -12. Yes, very good. Yep, that's that. I've done that for as long as I can remember. It was one of the first things I was taught, actually, because I saw when I was at university and I was doing jazz music and audio. When we were in the studio doing the audio part of my course, I would see a lot of guys very quickly and easily clipping. I mean, this is like 1994. So we're in the early days of proper full-out spec DAWs. So we're talking early days Pro Tools, which is what I learned on. And I would see the clip light would go on very quickly and easily. And I was just like, yeah, that doesn't sound so good. And it doesn't look right either. And so one of the guys I spoke to, he was just like, yeah, here's the way around that. And he taught me about gain staging. Ismail Abdur Rashid, otherwise known as Izzy, because he told me to call him that, which is cool. He says, joining late, Happy New Year. Today is the first day of now. Absolutely. And now is also now. Stephen Greenwood says, mine is to trust my ears and learn to call my mix finished without second guessing myself. You know what? That's a really good question. Really good point you've made. When do you call your mix done? Very important to get this right, because you can actually mix past the point of being done. You can push the envelope, you can push your mix that little bit too far and end up ruining it. It's very easy to do. I've done it myself. So when do you call your mix finished? My personal view is this. If you're sat right where I am in the sweet spot of my mix, and when it's in stereo, I'm feeling the groove. I'm about to sneeze, excuse me. Or at least I thought I was. Okay, I think it's gone. So when I'm sat in the sweet spot and I'm in stereo and I'm feeling the groove and I'm starting to, kind of nod the head to the music, I'm beginning to feel it in the chair, then I think, you know what, I'm close. That's the point where I'm going, I'm close to having this mix absolutely nailed. I hit the mono button again because I've already done most of the mix in mono. So I hit the mono button again and I see if the music still has the same effect on me in mono as it does in stereo. If it does, and I'm still feeling the groove and I'm still wanting to get out of my chair and dance to it, then I know I'm absolutely in final stages. And all we're talking about is finessing it. We're talking about just polishing it, finessing it, just tiny little things. And at that point, that's when I grab this guy and a pen and I roll my chair to the back of the studio right up against the door. Well, I hit play first. And then I roll all the way back. And the reason I do that is because it gets me out of the sweet spot deliberately. Plus, it also gets me away from the console where I can start to tweak things. So I go and I'm at the back for the full duration of the song until it's finished. And whilst I'm at the back there, I'm listening to the mix and I'm writing down anything that I think, kind of like pricks my ears up. So if I'm hearing, ooh, that vocal is a little bit on the harsh side, or ooh, that guitar, it just sounds a little bit woolly, it's starting to get lost a little bit, I write those things down. Or at the back of the room, not really a whole lot of bass coming through, or the bass sounds a little bit indistinct, I write that down. And then I wheel myself back into position, I hit the mono button, I make those adjustments, and I rinse and repeat. And I go back and I make another list. And eventually, I know that the mix is done when I'm sat in the back of the room and there's nothing for me to write down. There's nothing, that's pricking up my ears. And I'm feeling the groove back there. I'm feeling the groove in here. My final line of defense are these guys. If it sounds great on here, and it sounds great on these, both in mono and stereo, I've nailed it. That mix is good. And I call it done, and I print it, and I send it to the client. And they may well come back with some revisions to be made, but usually those revisions are not, hey, the vocal's a little bit muffled, indistinct. They don't tend to come back with those kind of things now. They certainly used to in my early days. They don't tend to do that now. What they tend to come back with is, hey, in the chorus, could you boost the lead guitar a little bit? Or, snare drum's a little bit loud. Can you bring it down a bit? Those kind of things, that's what they email me back. And that's just dead easy. I'll go back to my mix. I make those adjustments. I print out another mix. And I limit all of my clients to 3. So the first one that goes out is 0, then they get 1, 2, and 3. So I've never had to use up all 3 revisions with a client. So I must be doing something right somewhere. But yeah, that's all there is to it. Bobby says, boy, that's hard to decide. Izzy says, on songs going together, I thought of Wandering Aloud on Jethro Tull's Aqualung album. It didn't seem to go with the rest, but served to clean the palette. Sometimes a song might do that. Sometimes it might be there for that very purpose. You think, that song doesn't really fit. But it might be that it has that effect, that it sets you up for the next half of the record. John Anderson says, on the song selection choice for my CD, any reference on how tempo plays a part? Yes. Tempo is really important to song selection, to what we call in mastering, we call it sequencing. So you sequence your songs together. And tempo does play an important part. You don't want to slam your listener with songs that are 140 beats a minute for half an hour, 40 minutes, however long your record is. You really don't, because they in the same way that they get tired by overcompressed, harsh frequencies, the ears will also get tired by something that's very fast all the time. So changes of tempo are really important, because here's the thing. When you change tempo, you're not just going from slow to from fast to slow. You're allowing breathing space in the music and a change of mood as well as a change of pace. So, if you start out your record with a couple of pumping songs that are 120, 130 beats a minute, you've got to have something that's much slower there, that's maybe 80, 90 beats a minute. Something's a good 50, 60, 70 beats a minute slower than the first couple of songs, because you want to allow your listener to experience a variety of moods and emotional experiences through the course of your record. You don't just want them to be, this is a sprint, this is a sprint, this is a sprint, this is a sprint, this is fast, 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 fast. Because, by the end of it, they'll be exhausted before they've got to the end of your record, and they'll want to turn it off. So you want to give your listener a variety of different listening and emotional experiences. So sequence your songs carefully with that in mind. So maybe you you draw maybe a smiley face with your tempos. So you start fast, you get slow a little bit, you come back up again, you go back down again, you come back up again. Something like that. Give it some breathing points. Give your record some breathing points. Even if the material that you're working with in terms of the narrative of your songs, maybe it's not heavyweight, maybe it's lightweight material. Still all the same, you need to give your listener time to process what you've just discussed in one particular song. Let's say you've done a slamming, 150 beats a minute pounding song that has really intensive lyrics that are full of pent-up whatever that emotion is, whatever that is. Well, your next song, you don't want to have the same kind of, oh, here we go again, 150 minutes a minute, 150 minutes a minute. You need to give your listener some breathing time. Even if you are working in the heavy metal, heavy rock, speed metal genres, you still need to have something that's a little bit slower and has a little bit more breathing space. Maybe the chord changes don't change every 2 beats. Maybe it's every 4 beats, or even maybe 2 bars per chord change. Slow the harmonic rhythm down if you're not going to slow the actual tempo down. So there you go. There's some song selection options there for you, John. Some stuff to think about. Frank says, do you generally limit your time to mixing sessions time-wise to prevent ear fatigue? Yes, I absolutely do. I mix for no more than 2 hours straight. I prefer to do, because I have tinnitus, I prefer to do 90 minutes and then stop. And by stop, I mean completely stop. So I will walk out of the studio for at least 20 minutes. and I'll either go downstairs out of the building and go and get some fresh air, and then come back in 20 minutes later. Then I come back and I work again. Because not only am I giving my ears a break, I'm giving myself a change of scenery, a change of perspective. Yes, I'm giving myself fresh air, but it's also a change of environment as well. So, all of those things are important, so that you clear your mind, you clear your ears, you clear any clouds to your judgment. Because, after 90 minutes, 2 hours, you start, your ears do get fatigued, and that does cloud your judgment on on how the mix is progressing so far. You can very easily lose where you started from as you go like that. So what you need to do is go take a good long time out, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. If you work on the clock, you charge by the hour. Stop the clock at that point. Go take 25 minutes. Then come back in and start the clock again. And then the thing is you'll come back with not only fresh ears, but a clear mind, with clear and sound judgments. And I recommend that the first thing you do when you come back in is don't pick up where you were. Let's say you're working on the chorus and you're working on just the guitars, and that's where your mind was focused at that point when you stopped. Don't go back to that. Wheel yourself to the back of the room. Listen to the whole mix all the way through so you get context again. And then get back in to zeroing in on the bit that you needed to focus on. And what you might find is, you might find that you listen to that bit that you were focused on and go, you know what? I don't think I need to do anything more on that. I think I've got it. Or you might decide, you know what I've done is maybe not the best. I maybe need to go back and undo some of that and think again. So yeah, so there you go. Stephen says, my Achilles heel is mixing tracks which I have performed. Nothing wrong with that, providing you give yourself some time between the performance and the mixing. If you give yourself some time between the two, then you can separate yourself from the two. Because I mix my own material all the time. Every record I've ever made over the last 25 years or so, I have mixed myself. Because I can. And because it's downside cheaper than hiring somebody else to do it. But the way to get around that is have a specific time that you've set aside. I am recording these songs at this time. And then you take a little break, maybe a week. Come back to the songs and go, I am now mixing these songs. And you treat them as if they are not your songs. You treat them as if they are somebody else's songs, that they are client material. And that way you are clearing the clouds of judgment. Anything that clouds your judgment is bad when it comes to mixing. So be that your personal taste, your personal preferences, anything like that. I'm not saying influences are bad. Influences are good. If you've listened to a lot of mix engineers and you have mix engineers in your mind that you think, yeah, I would really like my mix to sound like theirs, that's good. That's aspirational. But anything, that clouds your judgment as you mix is a bad thing. So, which is why you don't want to mix for too long, and which is why if it's your material, you want to take some time out before you start mixing it. That'd be my opinion. Deirdre said the best albums or CDs are ones that you put in and press play and listen. And that is the goal. Yeah. You know what? Think about kind of the music you like, whether, if it's a cross section of different styles or whether it's one particular style. If it's the kind of music which you would actually stop and listen to, then it's good. Or, or it's music that has a particular purpose, that serves that particular purpose. So John says, beautiful input on this song, sequence and tempo selections. Well, I'm glad that helped you. Deirdre says, most veterans have tinnitus too, so if you haven't been checked, you should. I have been checked many, many times. I've had tinnitus since 1983. And that's because, you know, as a child, I was a performing musician as well, so exposed to lots of loud sounds, and particularly as a drummer, loud snare drums, loud cymbals. Yep, it's all there. So yeah, that's why I have tinnitus, and I have to mix through it, and I have people that I send my mixes off to, and I say, I want you to listen specifically to the high end, because that's where obviously my struggle is, because I have tinnitus. So I have people that I send my mixes to, and then they come back to me and say, you know what, you're playing too safe. You're fine. You can ramp up the high end a little bit more. So that's cool. So I do that with every mix I do, whether it's my own songs or whether it's songs for clients, for client records. I have people to whom I send every single mix, and they are part of my quality control, my quality assurance that I have for my clients. And those people know who they are, and they are extremely helpful to me. I couldn't do what I do without them. Izzy says, I'm always learning something in these live casts. Well, I'm very glad you are. And you know what? I'm always learning something from you guys too. And, you know, if it was just a one-way street, me teaching you and, you know, and you learning, it wouldn't be nearly as much fun for me, and I probably wouldn't do them. You know, I am a qualified and professional educator. I have done 2 years in a high school teaching me music and sound engineering in a high school here in Scotland. So I qualified for that. You know, you have to go through all the training to be a teacher for that. So I've done that, and I did 2 years in a high school teaching music to high school kids, and sound engineering as well. I taught a sound engineering course. I had to use Pro Tools for that, but hey, you know, I know Pro Tools. I can use it if I have to. I would have rather to have been teaching them using Studio One, but no, couldn't do that. I had to use what they had, which was Pro Tools. So Pro Tools it was. Principles remain the same anyway, regardless of DAWs. So it was fine. So I did that for 2 years. So I'm a fully qualified educator. And for me, education has always been a two-way street. If I don't learn something from my students, then I have a wrong attitude to teaching. You know, I have a problem of heart as a teacher if I'm not learning from my students as well. So I always try to learn something from you guys, and you guys always have something to teach me, which is great. So I love this kind of two-way mutual educational thing that we have going on here. So it is 1:05 in the morning. We've been going for 57 minutes, and we now have 11 people here because I probably talked for too long in answering one particular question. I have a habit of doing that, and I apologize. So anyway, I hope that everything that we've covered tonight has been helpful in answering your questions. Yeah, for those of you that posted your aspirations, we have all seen them. Everyone that is here and watching and has seen the chat, we have seen your aspirations. We are going to hold you to those now. So the thing for you guys now is to push on with those aspirations and turn those aspirations into actuality, turn them into reality, turn them into something that you achieve, something that you can say, I said it on a live stream, Jonny Lipsham Studios Live, you said it there, and you've achieved it. You know, make it a goal, make it something that you have fixed in your calendar. I'm going to achieve this by this time, whatever that might be that we've talked about today. And then that way, when we get to that point in live stream, you can come back in and you can say, you remember that aspiration I had, that thing that I talked about I wanted to achieve in 2018? I've done it. I can tick it off. I've done it. I've achieved it, and I'm going to keep getting better at it. And for me, that's priceless. That's worth to me more than all the gold in all the world. To hear you guys setting out your stall and saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to achieve this, I'm going to learn how to do this. Then you actually go ahead and you have a date for that, and you actually go ahead and you achieve it. That for me is That's why I do these things. I would not do these things otherwise. Stephen says, very helpful, JL, and everyone in the chat. Thanks to all, and happy, safe, productive 2018. And on that note, I'm going to echo that very, very cool sentiment and say thank you very much to everybody for all of their support and input during 2017. And sorry, just been distracted by something. Yeah, thank you everybody for all of your help and all of your support and all of your encouragement. And for those of you that have purchased my home recording made easy products this year, a huge thumbs up and a big thank you to you guys. And a big thank you to everybody that has said really nice things to me on my live streams. And a big thank you to everybody that watches my videos and comments on them and subscribes to my YouTube channel. You guys are the best. You are awesome. We have over 860 subscribers to this channel now. I'd love to push that over 1,000, because when we get over 1,000, YouTube release some extra features and functions to me. Well, I've hit the mic again, sorry. They release some new features and functions that I wouldn't have before. So that would be extremely cool. And on Sunday, I'm going to make some pretty big announcements that are going to be really big, really important. So if you guys, if you, excuse me, if you guys are really interested and really into what I am doing here in my studio, and you're really into getting better at what you do in your studios, then stay tuned to my live stream on Sunday at 6 p.m. Central Time, because I'll be making some announcements of some new services and some new products that are going to be launched at the top of this year that will help you get those aspirations that we talked about here achieved. Okay? And if you guys are up for investing some money and some time and some effort into those, then it'll be very, very cool for everybody. So new products, new services, new year, new Jonny Lipsham Studios. See you on Sunday at 6 p.m., folks. Good night.